Yo, what is up? What is up, libertarian family? It is K right here. I'm back at it with another good video for you guys today. And yeah, let's talk about it. We're gonna be talking about some science, and I guess as far as what people want to talk about in terms of the world going to crap, and people saying that the planet's gonna explode and Earth is not going to be inhabitable, or it's not going to be habitable anymore for humans. Um, I'm going to make the case to say why Earth is still going to be around, regardless if humans exist or not, and mankind is still going to still live on Earth. Um, and why the need of going to other planets is not even necessary to begin with, for human quote unquote expansion. Um, but yeah, let's talk about this because this is a very interesting topic, and people, say that the weirdest of things to try to scare people
Sure
into believing that, the world's going to end. Earth is not going to be, it's not going to be livable anymore. And, my whole case against this is that, for one, the planet has already been around for 4.7 billion years. So I don't ever see any part of this planet falling apart, because if the Earth was supposed to basically fall apart from, the time frame of, how should I say, like, ever since Earth was even granted its existence as a planet, animals that were brought into the world, that was constantly brought in through any means of, massive evolution that had to take millions of years to process, the very first, existence of an animal. And I mean, we don't even know how, the animals even formed to begin with, because this is like a lot of trials and tribulations of like how much you can say that the animals that were brought over to Earth had been around as like a mega form of their own original ancestry, such as like dinosaurs, armadillos in certain cases, like all these crazy ass monsters that people always be saying, oh well, look at all these monsters that have been like around, blah blah blah. Let the tigers have been around for quite a long time, being so big and whatnot, and having such major flaws with, like, their big large fangs and whatsoever. Like, I mean, like people just be coming out with like, the most craziest crap ever. And I think it's just simply due to people having this weird mindset of believing that Earth is not going to be around for that much longer. And I don't understand how people even come to that conclusion, because the thing is like, the planet has been around longer than humans. So what would make anybody think that the world is going to fall apart at all? Because by what people are talking about is that they're just basically saying that the Earth is going to just fall apart because of X, Y, and Z factors of human man-made, faults, which they'll say, oh well, it's because of pollution and whatnot. And it's like, that's probably not to be let the case at all, because to even make it a lot easier, human pollution doesn't even affect like, the world that much, because when you even think about it, about anything politically that idiots want to say on the internet, to say, oh, that the whole world's going to die, all the resources are just going to fall like apart, and humans are just going to end up having to leave Earth. And it's like, how the fucking Earth be uninhabitable when this planet was already being infested with so many toxins, so many variants of like different animals, polluting their own waste of their own. Like, we humans just can't be the fault of everything that's wrong with planet Earth. But the thing is like, when you really think about it, you have so many factors of how that the Earth, prioritizes itself, because Earth is a really gigantic planet. It's I think recorded by the science saying that Earth is like the fourth largest planet in the world, as far as the immense amount of space that the planet carries. And without the human population that exists now, that's not even like the full amount of space of humans that we have now on planet Earth that even takes up, I probably even say like 30 to 50% of what the Earth's planetary resources, or just like the geographical nature of it. But either way, like, I mean, Earth is pretty huge. There's really no reason of like why people think Earth is going to like fall like apart. And I mean, for the amount of humans that we have now, it's not even close to the amount of structure that people try to say that Earth is how should I say, vulnerable for. But either way, just to go against the argumentation that people use to say, well, the reason why Earth is falling apart and why humans need to find new planets to colonize, or I wouldn't even say colonize, it's just more like, inhabiting, because that's really why people are wanting to talk about leaving Earth and finding a brand new planet, like that's ever going to happen. Like, motherfuckers are trying to act like that this is Gears of War, or some shit like that, when it's clearly not. That like this ain't gonna be no Halo, series. But like, let's just break it down. People say, the Earth's resources are depleting. Earth is going through all these climate change effects, and people say, you know, eventually when the planet can't take any more resources being taken away, Earth is going to start going through phases of where the environment's going to start changing, and then more people will start suffering in terms of losing more resources, and then that's where the Earth will continue to, how should I say, go into its phase of being, how should I say, a failed planet, and then that's when the Earth will continue to go beyond its route of becoming unsuccessful, and then that's where all the forms of life will die, and then humans will have to end up leaving Earth for the sake of human survival, which by its own weird ass arguments that people use, it's not even close, because the thing is that if Earth is falling apart due to human failure, then why isn't the planet going through these changes right now, where you see the amount of failure that exists through human nature, through the sake of seeing resources fall apart, and then humans would have to act in some sort of way to manage the livelihood and the livestock of our planet, and then there would have to be some economical changes that mankind would have to do. But I mean, from the weird status understanding of it, which it's mostly status that complain about that the Earth resources going to shit, and that the planet going to fail. These are the same people that will say, oh well, this is why certain countries are failing, blah blah blah. And it's like, for one, government does play a massive role in certain planetary effects of like how planets operate. But obviously, I'm only talking about Earth. But what we can see about the environment of how the state handles property with massive environments that are being held by state controlled actors in state governing authority, what they end up doing is that they end up polluting the areas that they quote unquote say that they're going to be protecting, and then the wildlife themselves have to end up finding a brand new piece of environment to create their own habitat, right, so the animals can live. But on top of that, you're having to look at all the benefactors of what's going to come with the state nationalizing property, and therefore going in a certain direction where people end up doing things above and beyond the control of what mankind can't really control, because environmental protection is a huge major goal of any form of property rights management, to make sure that the environment is protected. But it's not to say it's a mankind's fault to say that the reason why the Earth is failing is because of humanity, because that's a really long shot to go by. And then on top of that, you're having to blame 7 point something billion humans for the sake of not controlling the environment, or preserving the environment, when clearly the state is that the main, predecessor of creating pollution, creating all these fucking wars that creates a shitload of pollution more. And on top of that, you just don't have any, political freedom to even go out of your way and try to fix the environment at a massive, marketized scale, where certain governing, authorities, they go beyond their level of wanting to, prevent people from trying to preserve the environment. And, that's what causes, the environment to, go to crap, because, governing bodies nationalize property, like I said, to prevent the environment from getting better. See, now, my response to the earth falling apart and all that, I don't see that to be true. Because if the earth, like, honestly, if the earth was, was like about to fall apart and all the resources were just going to die out and humans were just going to end up dying, then I think we've already, would have seen it already, and mankind would have been dead a lot quicker. But that's obviously not the case, because that the natural resources are still here, the oxygen levels are fine. It's not like that the ozone layer is being destroyed right now. People are saying, with the quote unquote science that they keep bringing up as like a bullshit argument, to say, oh well, the science shows that the ozone layer is falling apart and therefore the environment's going to break away soon. And if you guys don't know what the ozone layer is, they're saying that the amount of pollution that a lot of countries around the world that are producing, which is controlled by government, because government is the most biggest polluter on planet Earth. They're saying that the more pollution that ruins the ozone layer, which the ozone layer is the oxygen layer that gives humans the ability to live, because we obviously live off of oxygen. If we never really needed oxygen to live with, then it wouldn't matter to us. But knowing that oxygen plays a massive role in the resources that we need to survive, that's very, very vital. Because if we don't have that, then therefore we humans, we pass away very quickly. Like how all the other animals go through when they don't have their ecosystem food of what they live off of. Because all animals live off of a ecosystem in terms of what they need for resources. So of course they need to have those resources to survive and live. Otherwise, if they don't have that, then they're gonna end up killing themselves for the sake of survival. But either way, hold on, give me one second. All right, I'm back. So yeah, back to what I was saying. Like, if you just look at everything that's going on now within the environment, mankind can only do so much to try to preserve it. But when people are saying that certain countries around the world are not preserving their economies correctly with the whole climate change and all that crazy stuff, what ends up happening is that if the ozone layer is being destroyed and mankind is actually going through a massive climate, ecosystem change that's going to kill off like the planet's resources, because that's really that's really what matters. If you don't have those resources in place to protect one's area for human survival, or just environmental areas in principle, because that's really what matters. It's the environment that people care about, because if the environment's not being sustained, then what ends up happening is that resources are going to die out quickly, and then you're going to start seeing like the massive influx of how should I say, like the massive influx of pure destabilization within the natural environment of what people go through. So that's something that not a lot of people really insist on looking at, because that's something that's a major mishap of human failure, or just environmental failure, because the environment goes through a lot of failure. And it's not like that that Mother Nature has to correct itself, but it's like, look, I mean, granted, if like the ozone layer is going to fall apart and the sun's going to get closer to the earth and humans end up dying, it's like there's nothing that mankind can do about it. And what will just end up happening is that, life will just reset on the planet. And, furthermore, if anything, like a new set of life will probably end up producing in other planets as well. See, now, as far as what people want to say, as far as wanting to go above and beyond with going to other planets and quote unquote colonizing, which, they use that word a lot because they think like, oh, well, the state has to exist in some way or fashion. So therefore, in statism, we still have to have a governing authority ran by some intergalactic space model, which that's probably what statists are thinking now, because they think like, oh, okay, well, if the planet's going to fail, then that means that government's going to have to bring their headquarters to a damn spaceship, which I don't understand why people even go beyond this level, because it's not even going to happen. Because like when people start building their own decentralized networks to get away from like the whole concept of statism, I think honestly when it gets to the intergalactic level, I think humans will very well just end up being like Rick and Morty type characters, where they're just gonna be like, okay, well, there's no state at all, and the state can't even manage its resources, as efficiently that it tries to extort. And what's gonna end up happening is that more people are just going to go, to the level of just saying, okay, well, if we can't, really have too much of like a world, leadership based principality of having a state, then people are just going to go their own way and say, okay, well, screw you, we're going to create our own decentralized, intergalactic communities. And I mean, I like, honestly, like, I would like to see what life would be on other planets, but I think, honestly, due to what the level of technology that science does produce with a state, controlled, marketized environment that's obviously administered through statism, the biggest issue that a lot of people don't tend to understand is that the state has so many how should I say the state has so many factors of like what it does when it comes to technology, of going to other planets and trying to discover new things. But I think at this point, what we're seeing now is just that we're seeing a massive influx in the rise of technology, when people do talk about space. And also on top of that, markets are already producing space programs as it is, like Elon Musk with the SpaceX program, and all the other companies that are going out there to create their own space networks or space programming networks. But I think it's really good that big companies are doing that versus like governing institutions. They can't do that, and they clearly show that they do not sustain the right amount of resources to go to that level of actually wanting to be successful in space. Because one, that's going to cost millions, if not billions and trillions of dollars, versus if you had it privately funded through marketized agencies or through businesses that have the interest of wanting to go to space, then the markets are going to provide it, because there's going to be a massive supply and demand for it. And a lot of people would love to invest money and invest resources to see what life in space would look like. And I mean, if there's ever to be a planet, like, let's just say, like, I'm not playing no Gears of War bullshit on you guys, but let's just say, like, if there was a planet similar to planet Sarah, or like Ratchet and Clank type of planet out there, where there's like robotic structures of alienated creatures out there, I don't know, but let's just say if you guys want to play that little fantasy that aliens do exist, you can say that could be possible. And if if the planet has air, you can breathe in it. But then the environmental changes would be like it gets a lot colder in winter, so you have to create more clothing and whatnot. Like, I mean, human action will play its role in how should I say, in exploring different planets. But I think when it comes to just understanding how other planets would work, because it would be nice to see, like, if planet Mars, if they had like the same amount of life that Earth did, but the only difference is just going through certain seasons that affects the natural environment where people have to be careful where they live, and there has to be certain zones where the planet has to be cut off. Like, markets can easily do that, and I think there would be a lot more decentralization when it comes to exploring planets, when it comes to human action and wanting to migrate to different parts of the universe. But the likelihood of that would be very, very slim because, one, mankind is not even there yet in space technology to create the necessary ships, available to see how far we can go in, the quote unquote time frame of traveling through the speed of light to get to one planet to another planet. And I think when that time frame does come, at that point, humans are probably not going to even have statism around, because at that point, technology has to be decentralized at that point, because the amount of expansion that people would have to bring would require a lot of decentralized tools in a marketized, environment, where when people do create their own environments, it's going to be something a lot greater at the level where businesses come together, and the state is obsolete at that point, because states can't create their own environment. Even when humans settle at a new planet, it's not like people are going to listen to you when you brought those humans all the way from Earth to a different planet, and we don't know where all the other life forms are. We don't know if the aliens are going to be showing up on this planet that you go to. Like I don't know, like people have these weird philosophies of thinking, like, okay, if mankind settles in planet Jupiter, and let's just say Jupiter has air and they have living life forms where we can harvest resources and we could start, producing a new inhabited, space over there, that would be good and all. But on top of that, you have to think about the life forms that could be out there, like the aliens that could show up and be like, okay, well, we're going to end up either hurting you, or if they end up becoming good creatures and they're not harmful to take advantage of you, that's another good factor in it as well. But as far as that goes, I think when it comes to the Earth falling apart and it's going to explode and it's going to disintegrate from the face of the planet, I don't see that happening at all. Earth has been around for 4.7, if not way more billion years than that. That's just an estimated number that scientists have brought up because of the amount of life that has existed in Earth for quite a long time. But it's like, why should humans leave Earth now when we're already fighting with one another in a status world? But whenever you bring it to the galactic, space, there's not going to be any power of a state to exist at all. Because the reason why people still, live in statism is because of the violent, predecessors that you can put onto people that live in certain lands in the world to administer the state. But obviously, it's a mind control type of thing. It's not anything to do with land or property ownership, because people can come together in masses and defend themselves when that time comes. But I say, as of now, when you think about the structure of statism, the state could not manage itself at a galactic level, because what it would mean is that you would have to have a giant ass ship, like a huge ass galactic ship that would have to be super duper high tech, reserved, and that's like light years away. Like, that's like trillions of years away, where I don't even think humans would even think about that. But if it was even possible to even go to that level, which it could be possible, but you have to think about the structure. It's not going to be like Star Wars, where you have like your status, brethren of like different boards of like militarized structure, where you have with the clones, or you have with the Jedis. Like, I don't like I don't think about that. I don't think about the that the rebel army. I don't see any of this crap happening at all, because this is all fantasy mindset belief to think that this is something that could happen. But in all retrospect, like, honestly, it's not going to happen, because what will end up happening is that people, they're just going to end up going their own way. And I mean, obviously, people would say no, people would have to massively collectivize to find a proper inhabitants, for another planet. But, the stupid logic with this is that when mankind is intelligent enough to go their own way and independently run their own life through the means of galactic space travel, what will probably end up happening is that humans are probably going to go their own path of finding new planets. And whenever we think about what humans will do, I think honestly what's going to end up happening is just that they're really just going to end up separating. And I think when people start having spontaneous order in other planets, I think, full fledged anarchism in a metaphysical sense is just going to power itself, because people will start to see the idea of freedom becoming a lot more freer in other parts of the world. And, I'm not saying Earth is not going to be inhabitable anymore, but it's like, why would anybody want to leave Earth when humans still have to, still have to face their own problems in the planet that we still call home today? And I mean, why would you want to leave this planet? Like, there's no reason for mankind to leave when we already make contributions to the planet as we have been spawned in this planet. So, to me, like, I really don't care about it, about like human, like, migration of space travel. But honestly, at the end of the day, like, it doesn't invite anything new. All you're really saying is like, you just want to have, let the state either monopolize, the travel of humans when mankind makes that, decision to go to other planets, when, we don't even have the technology available to even be there. The closest or the furthest mankind has ever traveled was, to the moon. And here we are, fast forward now. Like, well, I don't even know if mankind even made it to the moon. I mean, that's all in speculation of what people believe to think that's true or not. But either way, like, I mean, I don't really care too much about it, because it's like, at this point, it's either, if you're really, how should I say, if you're more on the level of thinking that life is going to be better when humans go to other planets, I don't think of it to even be that much of a case for it, because it's like, what's going to end up happening going to these other planets is that you're going to end up thinking that you're comfortable, and then once it happens of you wanting to live there, and then there's some crazy like alienated species that comes out, and then humans end up dying, or there's like some intergalactic disease that goes on. I don't know, like, I mean, you have to think about these things. You have to understand like what would happen in these situations. And I'm just bringing stuff up just to be funny about it, but my case in point for this is that I don't think mankind would even get this far, because you have to think about how much longer that the state will try to hold its power for. And I don't even think statism is really holding as much volatile control over people. And I think sooner than later, when that opportunity comes in, I think more people will start to understand the level of statism becoming useless. Kind of like how people see the Queen of England not being viable. They just look at her as a celebrity, versus compared to the past, people have seen the Queen of England being a viable asset to them as far as a leader. But that was never to be the case. But you see what I'm talking about. Like, people naturally get away from political rule or from status, curse beliefs, or status beliefs. Once they put in the puzzles or puzzle pieces together to understand that life is a lot better without a state, and that's when people will start to reform, against it. And I think that's the problem. I think people are more concerned about what's going to happen when humans start to think beyond, the expectations of what could happen if this Earth is somehow failing, and what's going to happen when humans go over to other planets. Like, people just think too much into the future, but they don't understand the science behind these planets is that you don't know what the fuck is going to happen. when these planets either go through their stages of evolving or metaphysically changing an environment. I mean, Earth has had that for millions of years or billions of years. So it's not like you're not going to do anything different to even say, like, okay, well, I mean, you could say all you want to say, like, oh, well, just because you think that the Earth is not going to fail doesn't mean that the environment itself is looking to fail. And it's not true. Like, the environment's doing its thing. And I mean, if it is going to fail, it's going to fail in a certain manner where it's going to go through some lumps and humps. But I think when mankind sees the problem and wants to fix it, for those that want to live and actually help humanity, they're going to do it, because not all 7 billion of us are stupid. There's like a lot of smart people in the world that's going to step up to something. But either way, I don't care about that. I think honestly, the stupidity of status now, they think that, okay, well, with the amount of political insurrection that is going on now in the world, we can't go into any mode of being free of our own when the earth is going to somehow crumble. So we need to collectivize at a much grander level when space travel is a thing. When like mankind's not even there. Like mankind is like light years away from even achieving that. And what I mean by light years is like that's like a really really long time from now, and I'll probably end up being dead, hopefully, to not even witness what happens. But I think mankind will probably end up being free. And I think when statism does break itself and people start seeking ultimate freedom, to want to invest in space travel and go to other parts of the world, I think that's where real freedom will start to arise. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say. Let me know what you guys think about you know um you know the whole idea of space travel, the earth falling apart, or going to destruct itself, where the earth may not exist no more. Like, I mean, if you guys want to talk about that, leave it in the comments below. I'm still gonna grind out this channel, so y'all know what I'm about. So see you guys later. Peace out. Salute to the mighty LDBC. Or no, not LDBC, but salute to the libertarian family and everybody that loves peace, love, liberty, and happiness. So I'll see you guys later. This is the Libertarian Metaverse, and I'm K-Rod, and I'm out. Bye.